It is Monday, March 3rd, 2025. This is another off-season edition of Football Today. That's Bobby Skinner. I am Chris Rose. Producer Connor is here. Justin Pennick is caught in miserable New York City traffic. Can't find his way to the quarterback, Bobby.
It's just ridiculous. Me and you live in the busy, LA and then Melbourne, Florida. We get to work on time. Justin can't.
Well, I mean, I'm technically not in LA yet, but I will be. I'm still in Indy, still enjoying everything that is left behind from the 2025 NFL Scouting Combine. Before we get to that and everything that transpired over the last several days, congratulations. This is your first show as a married man. How we doing?
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Everything went great. It was a great ceremony, great reception, perfect weather. We did the rehearsal, before, and it's because it's right on the beach and it's windy. Like, oh shit. The day after, projected rain all day, rained all day. We got 70 and no cloud, 70s and no clouds, so everything went well. We're 1 week in. We got each other sick. I think we got the big
Hmm.
C-19, but we're good. We're good.
Okay. All right. Well, I hope you feel better. Let's see. Do you have a wedding band on?
I do. I do.
Okay.
Right there. There we go. So
Is it still the
now
same one
this.
that
Go
still the
ahead.
same one? Yeah, still the same one she put on your finger, or have you already lost it?
It is. It is. She almost lost hers though, because hers is a
Oh
little too
God.
big. And the hotel room calls us like, you guys left, a couple articles of clothing and a ring. I was like, man, you are messing up. Even though the engagement ring is the one that cost us some dough, so she had that one.
Wait a second. She left her wedding ring behind?
I know, isn't that crazy? Well, she was wearing it because it didn't
Oh
fit
boy.
perfectly. I know, I know, I know. But it's all good.
Okay, let's get this thing sized. This is supposed to be for eternity. Let's hang on to that bad boy.
That's what we're doing. We already sent it in.
Okay, well, let's get it going with this. It sounds like Matthew Stafford and the Rams are saying I do to one another. After a little bit of flirting with some other teams and the possibility that Stafford would leave the Rams, a place where he got traded to and then won a Super Bowl a few years ago, is staying put. We don't know the contractual figures just yet. Uh, let's start with what this means for the Rams. To me, we were actually talking about this the last few shows. I could not understand why in the world they would let Stafford and his agent talk to other teams because I mean, really, can you put out there that with this club, the team that gave the Eagles their best run in the playoffs, you would be okay with Jimmy Garoppolo as your starter over Matthew Stafford?
Yeah, that was where the Rams lost any of their leverage because it's like, what's your quarterback plan if not? I think if they probably would have like tried to pivot to Aaron Rodgers or something,
Right.
which I don't think would have been the worst thing in the world. But that was where I understand that he's 37 years old and you want to be ahead of these things instead of behind with them. But they're not the favorite, but they are a Super Bowl contender with Matthew
Hmm.
Stafford still. And I would take that risk of being a year late on his fall off or 2 years late on his fall off for that opportunity, and I think the Rams did. I think, but this was almost like over though. Like I know it all from if you're just looking at it casually, it seems like, oh, yep, the Matthew Stafford used the Giants and the Raiders as leverage, but it really did seem like the Giants at points in the last month just believed they were getting Matthew Stafford. Like not like they're working it, they're trying to get something done. Like they thought Matthew Stafford is going to be a New York Giant.
Oh yeah, no, I mean it certainly sounded like it. So at first it was the Giants, and then it was the Raiders, and then there was the chance meeting of those two in the ski slopes. Um, so I suppose maybe the more interesting part of this equation, now that Stafford is staying put, is what does this mean for teams like the Giants and the Raiders, who draft at 3 and 6 respectively, and don't know if they're going to get their hands on the quarterback that they want? Where do they go from here, in your opinion? Let's start with your team, the Giants.
I think the Giants they will either trade up to number one or pick a quarterback at number three. I don't think we get quarterbacks that go in the first two picks unless there's trade ups. And if there's going to be a trade up, I think the Giants will be involved uh, in that. So I think that's where the Giants are at. The Raiders are a little further down, so it's harder to make a move, because you lose out on like the Titans if they wanted to trade down with the Giants, they get at least Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter. They trade down with the Raiders, they may be taking, Will Campbell or fill in the blank like next best guy off the list. I guess they want to take O-line 3 years in a row. But wouldn't it make me too mad? Uh, so that's where it is. The Giants are shopping so hungry, right? To go in like believing you're getting Matthew Stafford, and then you're going to pivot to, oh, actually we're going to trade up. Like I like Cam Ward a lot, but I don't know. I don't trust that you love Cam Ward so much if you were doing all of this and you really thought you were getting Matthew Stafford. And don't tell. Like I hate the idea of trading all that for Matthew Stafford, paying him, and then trading up for a quarterback or drafting a quarterback. I don't believe in that. I know everyone cites the Falcons as some success. I cited it as a really bad wasted assets by the Atlanta Falcons. So the Giants are just this is the issue of bringing back Joe Shane and Brian Dable, man. They are so desperate. Like and it's clear. And John Mara, the owner, is basically like encouraging them to be desperate instead of maybe pulling the reins back a little bit. It's a mess. That's why the Giants have been a bad team for a long time since that Super Bowl 46.
Yeah, so I think it's really interesting. You've got out of the top seven teams that are drafting this year, five without long-term quarterback situations. You've got Tennessee at one, Cleveland at two, the Giants at three, the Raiders at six, and the Jets at seven. And I think they're all sitting there going, how the hell can we do this? Now, I think you put the Jets and the Raiders out of the equation because they both have new coaches and new front office personnel. So they've got a little time to figure this out. The Giants, I sit here and wonder, is Joe Shane going to do what's best for the organization, which is probably draft a quarterback very high, or is he going to do what's best for himself and Brian Daboll, which is to get a guy who can win games this year so they can at least convince ownership that they deserve to stick around. Now, I don't know what they would have to do next year after this miserable 3-14 season where it got off kilter and now they've had two bad years in a row. So I don't know exactly what makes the Mara family happy with his decision maker and his head coach to let them stick around. Because if they trade up to one, and Cam Ward could end up being a great quarterback. But I think when we look at it, Caleb Williams ran laps around him in college. And what happened to the Bears coach after they took Caleb Williams number one and he joined a significantly better team than Cam Ward or Shador Sanders or whomever will join the Giants, right? He got fired. So do you think Brian Daboll wants to put his head coaching future on a rookie that could be a coin flip?
So this is where they should sign a vet regardless, because I mean they
Yes.
don't have any quarterbacks on the roster, and I know everyone laughs at the Aaron Rodgers thing. And as someone who was not all in on this Matthew Stafford trade, I would be okay with signing Aaron Rodgers to a 1 year deal. Like that's the type of 1 year deal you give out, to an older quarterback because it's not going to be top of the market. You don't have to bring in Nate Hackett and Alan Lazard as a package duo, even though there is rumors that Devontae Adams may be a part of that. But Devontae Adams is actually good. We're not forcing Randall Cobb and Alan Lazard to the team. Um, so I think the Giants may have helped themselves by not winning the Matthew Stafford thing. Because like let me say this to you because I've been throwing this out there and Giants land, it's just so much like I want a quarterback that people do not give a shit what you're doing as long as you get quarterback. Wouldn't the idea of trading draft picks and paying money to Matthew Stafford and then drafting a quarterback in the first round be bad practice?
Of course it would be.
But people are just like, yeah, but then you get two quarterbacks and it's a good problem to have. It's like, okay, but that's something you created where that quarterback's not going to play anytime soon. You use draft picks and money that could have helped that young quarterback out. And I'm not rush the quarterback. Like, go sign a vet, right? If you plan on drafting a quarterback, sign a vet. Sign a vet. Don't give up draft picks. Don't pay top of the market for them for that vet quarterback. Go sign a vet. Don't do what the Atlanta Falcons did. I'm sorry. I'm tired of people citing the Atlanta Falcons as like, well, see, they got it right. Like, well, no, they didn't. They wasted a ton. They have a $40 million backup quarterback or $45 million backup quarterback right now, and they can't get rid of him without taking a huge chunk of dead cap. And then they're not going to be able to use that money to help their young quarterback in Michael Penix. Just draft the quarterback. Whereas if you sign Aaron Rodgers, that doesn't stop you from drafting a quarterback.
Yeah, I just don't know if that fits from Rodgers' standpoint, right? I mean, he's no dummy. He's going to see what is there and more importantly, what isn't there right now. I know that the Giants and Joe Shane have been thumping their chest saying, hey, listen, we're not as far away as some people think we are. Look at what Washington did last year, and that's sure that's possible because even after Washington, I mean, they signed everybody in free agency. We couldn't quite figure out what they were doing, and then they end up playing in the NFC Championship game. So, you know, is it possible that the Giants could turn things around? I suppose so. The
The Giants can
Washington,
have a solid offense with a good quarterback, but they're not. Their defense is still it is the defense is barren of talent, and they have no depth, right? So like the offense on paper, you get Andrew Thomas at left tackle, Jermaine Illuminor at right tackle. Your interior, you've got some, money there. You'll probably invest in that a little bit. Then you add Neighbors and Adams and Wandale. Like and you put a quarterback in there. It's like that's an offense that can be a top 10, top 12 offense in the NFL. The issue is if Andrew Thomas goes down again, which he's, as much as he's my favorite player in the NFL, and I root for him personally, one injury, you're one injury away from that offensive line being really bad again. You're one, Devontae Adams injury away from not having a second wide receiver that you can really trust to get open on a consistent basis. Tyrone Tracy was a nice rookie back. Like I don't know if he's a bell cow back. So they're just on paper, it looks fine. It looks like a fine situation to put a quarterback in. The issue is that it never goes to as according to paper.
All right, let's move on to some of the biggest news that came out of Indianapolis over the weekend. That was the fact that the Washington Commanders picked up Deebo Samuel in a trade with the San Francisco 49ers for a fifth round pick. Deebo, I believe, scheduled to make 18 mil this year or so. He wasn't as good last year as he has been in previous seasons. In your opinion, is this worth the risk for Washington because they gave up so little?
Yeah, I mean it surely is for Washington. Like you said, they gave up a fifth round pick. And they don't have to take on a ton of cap because the 49ers just gave him that contract, so they have to eat a ton of it. I mean, yeah, last year was he amazing? No, but he had 670 yards, and we saw how important he is for that team. So yeah, he's 20. He's going to be 29 this year, or he's just turned 29. Um, but like he's a fit with the screen wise and stuff, and you could see they can live without that top wide receiver too. So even if they miss him for some games, like it's just kind of like get him to the playoffs. Now I'm not going to sit here and say I can't believe the 49ers did this. They're going to look back and Deebo Samuel's going to make them pay, but it really is so low risk for the Commanders to say why not? Because this is going to be a better option than De'Ami Brown and Olamide Zaccheaus.
Yeah, I mean, and plus you can get guys in the middle rounds of this draft. We saw a bunch of them this weekend that I think can contribute right away. Deebo, where is he right now? He looked slow last year. He had his least productive season outside of an injury-plagued one where he played 7 games a few years ago. Just I'll be curious to see if he's ready to kind of whip himself back into shape and be a dude that wants to fight for another contract. I just don't know where he is because it just felt like he was like a lot of the Niners, checked out at times. And does he kind of get a breath of fresh air, or is he going to be like 60% of the best Debo that we have ever seen? I don't know exactly what I'm getting if I'm Washington. It's
And it's but
worth
it's
the
a
risk.
It's still a good situation for Deebo. He doesn't need to be the number one wide receiver, similar to the way Ayuk kind of took that role over in San Francisco. And it's, a screen heavy defense where, teams play soft because of their worry of Jaden Daniels' legs. Like it's just a good fit there too. Like obviously he has to stay healthy and play to, the level that we, came to know Deebo Samuel to play. But like I don't think it's all over for him. Now, maybe if there's just a work ethic issue and he's at the end of his career and not putting in the work, then there's questions. And when he's traded for a fifth round pick with that type of cap that the 49ers have to eat, it does make you wonder. Um, but it's just I love fifth round picks as much as the next guy, right? I love them, right? I love every single pick of the NFL draft. I memorize Mr. Irrelevant every year. Jalen Key, Alabama safety last year for the Jets.
Huh.
But the reality is they usually become pretty bad players, right? Your fifth round pick it usually becomes a bad player,
Yeah.
and they traded that for a chance to raise their ceiling quite a bit.
all I would say is this. It wouldn't surprise me if you're going through the box scores in week 6 and you're like, so Deebo had what, 4 touches today? Like a run and 3 catches for 26 yards. That wouldn't shock me. Once again, to me, it's worth a risk. I just don't know where he is at this point of his career. I suppose also the other side of this is, does it feel with everything that has gone on in San Francisco the past 6, 7 months that they missed their window, or are you still optimistic?
I am still optimistic. We've seen this 49ers team be a little up and down in the Kyle Shanahan year. Sometimes that's been due to quarterback injury, but they've planned for this departure of Deebo. Drafting Ricky Pearsall, they extended Jawan Jennings. Obviously, they have Ayuk who will be coming back from injury. Uh, they're still like a top two talented team in the NFC,
Do you
right?
think so?
Don't you? I mean, they still have all pros at every level of the field. I know they're older and the window is closing, but it's
I
a
don't know,
lot.
Bobby.
A lot has to do with health, but like it was kind of a everything went wrong season for them last year.
I would agree with that, but I don't see them. They're certainly not more talented than the Super Bowl champions. They're not
No.
more talented, in my opinion, than Detroit. I would venture to say that they're not. I, I think Minnesota is extremely talented. I think the Rams are very, very talented. I just don't think that, like last year, I looked at the Niners. I was like, okay, well, I'll see you in the playoffs. I don't know what seed you'll be. And then once you make it to the playoffs, because of the sort of mentality you guys play with and the fact you have so much experience, it doesn't matter whether you're the 6th seed and have to go on the road or you're the 2 seed. It doesn't matter. Like, I'll pick you. But that's not where I am with this team right now. I think that, first of all, it starts with the Brock Purdy contract. I think they look him in the eye and they say, this is what we're giving you. We are not going to negotiate. This is it. So you can either play out your deal and then take yourself to free agency, or this is what you're worth. They cannot go in the $50 million range with this guy, in my opinion.
Yeah, we'll see. But like this is the team, this is the roster that was in overtime of the Super Bowl a year ago, and they've only lost Debo really. You know, like that's all they lost. They still have, Christian McCaffrey, Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle, Kyle Juszczyk, Trent Williams, Nick Bosa, Javon Hargrave, Fred Warner. They got decisions to make on Charvarius Ward and Hufanga. But I think they've put some guys in place to possibly replace them, and they had a good draft last year of guys who may step up. Their offensive line is probably in better shape, even though it's still not in a really good spot, especially without Trent Williams. Listen, I'm not betting on them because they have a lot of injured guys who are their key pieces for them, right? McCaffrey, Kittle, Williams, those are guys all that have dealt with injuries, and I'm not expecting as they get older to deal with them less. But like you said, like Eagles, Lions, yes, they are more talented. If I think the 49ers are the third most talented team in the NFC, but like you said, a lot of it just depends on their health.
Yeah, they got a lot of work to do. They've got the 11th pick in the draft this year. We'll see. They have to get better, in my opinion, along the offensive line. I'm just not a fan of what is going on there outside of Trent Williams. I think they're okay. Last year, they did pick up Dominic Pooney, I think, out of Kansas and had a solid year. So we'll see. The rest of it, I think you could see some of those veterans actually get thrown by the wayside. It wouldn't surprise me if John Lynch starts cutting some dudes where you're like, wow, okay, well, that was interesting. It'll be they've got 11 picks, I believe, in the draft.
And it could come from ownership too, right? Where
Yes.
Shanahan and them want to and Lynch want to make another run, and ownership's like, well, I'm not paying top dollar at all these positions for us not to make the playoffs. I think that'd be pretty short-sighted by the owner. But I still do think that window's open. Is it as open as it was 4 years ago, 5 years ago? Absolutely not, right? It is coming towards the end with all that talent on that roster, but they're also, a few good additions from reopening that window. You still have Nick Bosa. We'll see what happens with the Brock Purdy contract. Um, they're like, even with the guys that are expiring, they're still a talented team. It's not just, five old injured guys that are holding that team together.
All right, let's move on to the combine. I was here working it for NFL Network all weekend. There were obviously some big names that did not partake. They were here, they were doing their interviews, they were doing their medicals, but they didn't do the testing, they didn't do the on-field work, and that starts with the top two quarterbacks available: Cam Ward out of Miami, Shador Sanders out of Colorado. Um, the whispers here was that there is a bigger gap in some cases. Some people say there is a bigger gap between Ward and Sanders than there is between Shador Sanders and the third best quarterback in this draft. Do you think that that is accurate?
Yes, and that's without really going in on the third and fourth, or the projected third, fourth, fifth quarterbacks. So when we were in Alabama, because we do the Giants, everyone comes up to us and like, Shador Sanders kind of sucks, right? And it's like, what the hell, you know? And then so I went and did my film on him. I'll have a video out on him in the next week or so, Rose. I don't see it like I just don't see a first round quarterback, right? Like it's just everyone will point to, oh, the arm talent, he's not this great mover. I don't think those things are reasons why to not bet on him, but I don't view that as the issue. I don't think he's this, oh, he's got everything figured out pre-snap. I don't think so. I think anytime a safety dropped down, he threw an interception. Like anytime he got a different look, it was a lot of Travis Hunter and screens and yak. Now he throws a good deep ball up the sideline, but I just didn't see a first round quarterback. And then when you watch Cam Ward, you're like, hey man, there's some worries here, but there's a lot to like here, right? My pro comp for him, no pro comp is perfect, so this will get torn apart, but it's like Sam Darnold, right? Where it's like not the best athlete in the world, but they're good movers in the pocket. They're slippery. They're aggressive. They read leverage, but also that aggression will get them in trouble at time. And it's how do they polish that in the NFL? Obviously, Darnold struggled early on and then had his best year this most recent season. Where with Shador, you kind of got to like squint to find like a positive comp for him, where it's like Andy Dalton, right? Like that's
Oof.
that's like the comp for him, who was like, hey, a starting quarterback in the NFL for a long time, but not really leading you to the promised land. So yeah, I agree with that wholeheartedly. Like the best case I've heard for Shador Sanders is he's better than Cam Ward, but I don't think that's a big positive on Shador. I think that's more of just like I don't really like Cam Ward's game type of people.
So I think it's fascinating. I think the best thing that you can say about Shador is also something that might scare you a little bit, and that is that he has been Deion Sanders' son his entire life, which means that any sort of sometimes these bright lights get to young kids. They really do, and they can't deal with situations. He was at his podium the other day saying, listen, what I do is turn franchises around. We did it at Jackson State on a small scale. We did it at Colorado on a much larger scale. I will do it for you and your team in the NFL. And if you don't think so, years from now, you're going to look back and say, we should have drafted that guy. So you got to love his confidence. He's not scared of anything. At the same time, when you look at what he does, I don't know if it's ideal for today's NFL. Out of the 14 guys that quarterbacked teams in the playoffs, how many were? I think he is a pocket passer. Can he keep plays alive? A little bit, not a ton, but he's much more in the Jared Goff realm than he is anything else. Wouldn't you say that? No,
Yeah, and I don't hold being a pocket passer against them, right? But when I look at pocket passer, I'm like you got to have great command. You got to
yes.
be anticipating throws really well. You got to be risky throwing the ball over the middle field. And I just don't see that, right? Right? Like he has a high completion percentage. That's cool, but when it's not by being aggressive, and I do think he throws a nice deep ball down the sideline. Like it's a beautiful ball. He throws it with nice touch. It's accurate. So I'm not saying there's nothing to like about Shador, but and but I need to, if I'm going to bet on you making all those improvements, you got to be I got to see more aggression. And I got to see a better reason why with your arm and your athletic ability to bet on all of those things improving. Where with Shador, it's like if all those things improve, yeah, like you said, you're not at a top five quarterback in the NFL. And then I'm betting on you improving all these things. I just don't think that's worth a first round pick. And I'm a little more I'm a little more like I'm not as aggressive with the quarterback position as some other people and draft media are, right? I don't believe it's just taking swings. No, I think you got to really evaluate these guys And these are make or break decisions. And don't just take it because it's the quarterback position. And if you get it right, it's sick. So I don't view Shador Sanders as a first round pick. And I did not love McCarthy, um, Nix or Penix, right? I don't have him above those guys, right? Cam Ward, I do, right? Cam Ward, I have above those guys. Last year I would have taken the Williams, May, Daniels trio, and I would have passed on the other three. And I haven't seen anything to really change me totally yet, even though Nix has, going towards that. Um, Cam, I see the reasons why. I can see the reason why he can fail too, right? They're definitely there. But with Shador, I'm just like, why am I betting on you fixing, getting better at all these things when you really don't have the talent that's worth betting on in the top 5 or top 10?
Does it scare you that he's never not been coached by Dion?
No, see, like a lot of the reasons, like why people will point at, like you mentioned, like the podium or whatever. I like that stuff, right? His confidence is a reason why maybe I do take a chance on him because he's like, confidence is key at the quarterback position, right? That's key on it's very important to your early beginnings in the NFL. Because if you go through some struggles and you lose your confidence, a la Sam Darnold, well then you're screwed. You go through some struggles and you keep your confidence, and then you're a good quarterback in the NFL who learned from it. So I actually like those things from Shador. He's been coached by different offensive coordinators too, so I know that's different. So yeah, there's a little bit of like, maybe I don't want my franchise quarterback doing a podcast. He did throw, his offensive line under the bus against Nebraska. Um, so there's a little bit of that, but to me that stuff doesn't stop me from wanting a quarterback. I just don't think he's a first round player.
All right, so let's move on. Those two guys are consensus, obviously the top two quarterbacks. There's always a third guy, and you're talking about at the end of the first round. Is there somebody that's worth trading up for to get that extra year when it comes to the option on a rookie first rounder? Did anybody wow you this weekend, or in your studying of film makes you say, hey, yeah, you know what? This guy might be worth trading up for?
I haven't went fully into any of these guys yet. I know Tyler Shugg, the Louisville guy, is like kind of wowing people. He looked pretty good at the Senior Bowl, but I know he's like turning 25 years old or whatever.
Yeah, he's already
Um,
25.
yeah, I just that worries you. It shouldn't stop you, but it worries you. Jackson Dart, man, the Ole Miss offense is it's tough for me to take someone in the first round playing quarterback for that offense. It just is. Like you don't judge the helmet, but that offense is not realistic to the NFL. And it's like, all right, so now we're gonna totally transform you and change everything you do, and it's gonna work out. That worries me. Milrow is super talented, but also super flawed. He's not somebody that you take in the first round. So I don't think so, man. I know we've had some high volume quarterback classes, but I think we may be back down to a two quarterback first round.
Yeah, that's only happened, I believe, 4 times in the last 15 drafts where two or fewer quarterbacks have been taken in the first round. I think it was 2010, you had Bradford and Tebow. 2013, you had EJ Manuel. The top two picks were Jameis and Mariota in 2015, and then Kenny Pickett was the lone quarterback drafted.
Tannehill didn't go with Jameson. Oh no, no, that was the
No, that
RG3
was
draft. No, excuse
yeah,
me.
that was 2012. He was one of, I believe, 4 quarterbacks went that year.
Oh, and that once reminded me of Shador. Like I don't think Shador's film is much, if not worse, not much better or worse than Kenny Pickett's was coming out of Pitt. Now Shador did it for a longer period of time, where Pickett had a 1 year breakout in the COVID year. But like Pickett's COVID year film was better than Shador Sanders' most recent year at Colorado.
Ouch. So I was down on the field when all these guys were throwing in the first group. So it was the Will Howard, Jackson Dart group, and yeah, I mean there was. It's just fun to kind of watch the ball come out of their hands. And I'll be honest with you, Dylan Gabriel threw the ball better than I thought. I'm not talking about where it ended up. I'm talking about the ball actually came out of his hands with a little punch to it. I thought that was kind of fascinating. I wasn't expecting that. I'm not saying that would help him on my draft board if I were to create one. All I'm saying is I was surprised by it. That's all.
He's a little guy. Um, yeah, but that's kind of the same takeaway we had in Mobile. So we don't go to the combine because it's not about what's happening there. It's about what you're hearing.
Right.
But you do go to the combine, Rose. Like, where do you what do you hear with like the quarterback position? Because it seems like it's lining up. Like Cam Ward's going to go probably first, second, third.
Hmm.
And then Shador, we have no clue. It could be third, it could be, 13th or whatever. And then after that, it's just a free for all.
Yes, and it wouldn't surprise me if Shador falls even further. I'll
So
be
yeah,
honest.
that was gonna be my next question. Like, gun to your head, what range of picks does Shador go into?
Far. I really believe it. I honestly believe it. I think it's going to be quite a tumble. I think first of all, I don't know if it's going to I don't think it'll be the Titans, but I think somebody will draft Cam Ward at 1. It wouldn't surprise me if the Browns move up 1 pick just to secure that. It wouldn't shock me if your Giants do that. I don't know if Tom Brady where his head is with that, but we know that he is not a patient person. And that's why it's so fascinating to see him in this role, right? He's all about winning. He's all about stepping on the accelerator. He's not necessarily about building the right thing. He's about getting it done today. How can you be better today? And so I'll be really interested to see how they go about putting their quarterback room together. But as far as Shador, I mean, folks, I would say buckle up. It wouldn't surprise me if he falls into the 20s. We just wouldn't.
And I think that's where he kind of belongs, because quarterbacks you always give them like a one round bump of what you think they are versus where they go. But you know, what the people said at Alabama to me matches what I think. But so I don't use what people say, but like we said it on our post Senior Bowl episode on Talking Giants. We're like, there wasn't a single person who came up and said nice things about Shador. Everyone literally like everyone's conversation starter with us is like, oh gosh, you guys are probably gonna draft Shador. That stinks. Like every single one, and then it's like, all right, let's go. Let me go watch the film. Like I'm at least expecting this to be a little more precise and good timing and stuff like that. And it's like it's just not that. I think people are, grabbing a play here or there to prove, to try and say he is that, but in reality, he's just not.
Nope. Be interesting. Leave us a comment. Let us know where you sit on the quarterbacks.
One more question.
Yeah.
Do you think the Dion, his name, it probably helps him in the media? Is it hurting him? Like, do you think it'll make him teams possibly pass up on him that may have a borderline first round pick on him?
So here's my thought on this. And obviously, I worked with Dion for a decade. And I like Dion, and I think that he's been great for college football. But he also has a microphone in front of his face more than any dad in the NFL, right? People are going to want to know what you think of Shador. Why isn't he starting? Does it bother you? So even if he answers the questions to a T, he has access that other parents just don't have. And then guess what? Where that ends up? That ends up on First Take, and it ends up on all the talking head shows. And it's all because one way or another, whatever reaction it is, people are going to talk about that. So I think that any team that takes Shador has got to have number one, a head coach that has accomplished something in this league and isn't hanging by a thread. That's why I don't think it makes sense for your Giants. It doesn't make sense for my Browns necessarily. You have to have a head coach that has won something and can say and can take all that stuff that comes along with it. Number two, you have to have an owner that is willing to listen to all that stuff and not be bothered by it as well. Some owners, they listen to all that stuff and then they walk into the GM and the coach's office and say, now remind me why we're not playing Shador again. And the coach will go, because he ain't ready. Well, I think he's ready. And then at the end of the day, all of a sudden Shador's playing when he's not the best quarterback. I just think it has to be an ideal situation with everything that's involved.
Yeah.
That's the
I
way I
do
see
still
it.
think the Giants will take him if they can't get Cam Ward because they are the most desperate duo in the NFL right now. Thank you, John Mara, for creating this situation.
All right.
You know, but
Before we get
anyways.
out of here, a little more combine talk. Give me one guy on each side of the football that you thought really opened some eyes and maybe made some money just based on what they did this weekend. We'll start on the offense. We'll each go.
So I didn't pay too much attention, and I'm actually going to break the rules. I'm going to start on the defense.
Oh, okay. Break the
That's
rules.
safety from South Carolina.
Yes,
Nick,
Nick Eamon.
even worry, right? I saw some people talk about him as like a first round guy
Yes.
after the Senior Bowls, watching some of my guys, friends' shows and stuff. Um, I'm excited to go watch his film because safety is the ultimate, like, I don't care how you test, it's how you play. But if he plays with good instincts and stuff and with that testing, then you're talking about a fucking all pro safety. Now, if he plays with lack of instincts, he's going to be this guy that some team falls in love with, and then you're going to look back at 3 years later and he's, a backup or getting cut. So the South Carolina safety, Nick Eamon, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep,
On
nailed
the
it.
defense really, really got my attention. So hopefully, the film matches the combine testing.
Well, I think it does. He was number 25 on Daniel Jeremiah's top 50 board coming into this thing. The athleticism that he showed, and he did not do the on field work. So he did just the testing. But you're talking about a 43-inch vertical for a guy who weighs 220 pounds and is over 6'2". He had numbers between running a 40, sub 4.4, jumping more than 40 inches. The only other guy in the combine's history, and this is since we've been measuring this stuff in 2003 with his size and speed and height and jumping ability is DK Metcalf, the only other guy in the history of this combine. So when you are physically being compared to one of the marvels in this sport, it's something special. And Daniel said his tape is great. Said he's just so he won't be the 25th best prospect on Daniel's board the
Okay,
next time Daniel does this. I mean, he's going to jump. It wouldn't surprise me if he makes it all the way up to top 15. He was a big, big believer in him before, but he actually told me, he said, Rose, watch this kid today. He is going to light the world on fire. And it was awesome to watch him do his thing. It was very cool.
dope.
For me on defense, the defensive tackles, this class, I think they're going to set a record. The most number of defensive tackles taken in the first round of a draft is 6, and it's happened 4 times. I think we could get past that. And one of the guys who I think solidified himself as a first rounder this weekend was Tyleik Williams out of Ohio State. He didn't run the 40, but the rest of it was phenomenal. He did all the on field work, weighed in at 334 pounds. You know, they do that one drill where it's an 8. They put the 2 hoops out there and they got to drop the towel down and
Yeah,
then pick up the towel and go put it down. His ability to get down, some guys just drop the towel from the air, and that's not what they want. They want you to place it on the ground. At 334 pounds, and to be able to bend like the way he does and do that stuff, I think you're going to see him. And I would be terrified if he ends up with one of those really good playoff teams from a year ago. And I think that's exactly where he's going to end up at the end of the first round. He was awesome. Really, really
yeah,
good.
yeah.
Offensively,
Armand Membo from
oh,
Mizzou.
yes. Great call.
One of my first watches, really, really like him. And I think he measured as a like. He's not gonna be the biggest tackle, but I think he measures as a tackle. I think he should play tackle. I think, I did a video on him. He shut down Shamar Stewart, who was like everyone's, testing darling this year, and looks the part type guy. Um, I think he's at worst the second offensive lineman off the board after Will Campbell. With again, I haven't watched everybody yet. I'm a little behind this year due to a wedding. Uh, but Armand Membo, like he was one of the first watches this year. I'm like, this is fucking sick. Like this is a legit NFL tackle right here.
So, a couple things about him. First of all, he was the loudest player at the combine in running the 40. If you haven't seen the video, go find it on Twitter. It's hilarious. He is screaming the whole way when he crosses the 40. I mean, it's a thing of beauty. He doesn't turn 21 until the end of the month, Bobby. He's got 30 starts on his belt, and he isn't even 21 years old. That's a big deal. I'm sure NFL talent evaluators look at him and they're like, oh, there's so much here to work with. He's good already. Think of how good he can be when he gets there.
Can I tell you
Uh,
something, Rose?
yeah.
And you're familiar with this too, as teams who are always like picking in the top five. It sucks falling in love with these guys who are going to go like 11 or 13 or stuff because it's like, well, we're just going to get the top of the draft guys. And my falling in love with this guy and saying he's so good, don't worry about this, don't worry about that, is all for naught. I'm just going to go watch him be good on the Bucks.
Yeah, I get it. I understand that because, yep, they'll pass right by your team.
He,
You'll be like,
he
damn.
should not go past the San. You mentioned the San Francisco 49ers at 11. He
Hmm.
should not be going past that position.
That's a
Like,
perfect spot for
I think
him.
the 49ers should be willing to trade up for a guy like him.
Yep, that's a perfect spot for him. By the way, he's not going to get past Chicago
There
with
you
what
go. I'm a
with
big Chicago guy, so get him, Chicago. Don't fuck around.
yeah, with what they yeah, no way. Mm-mm. Um, Offensively for me, now this is a guy who he probably moved up a round. I wonder if he moved up a day. I think he probably went from like a day 3 to a day 2 guy. Bashal Tutin, running back out of Virginia Tech.
Mm.
He tested incredible. I don't know what's going on, in that area, but we had a couple guys from Virginia Tech test pretty well. He ran a 4.32. That was the fastest among the fastest running back class that we have ever seen. He had the best vertical of any running back of over 40 inches. He was second in the broad jump, so he almost had the testing triple crown for running backs. And this is an extremely talented class. He also has had a lot of great production for the Hokies over the years. So he's more than just a testing freak. Um, I'm a fan of what he brings. He went to North Carolina A&T to start his career. Last couple years at Virginia Tech, I believe he had 38 touchdowns over his last 3 seasons there, so he can find the end zone. Is he a guy that moved into the third round? I think that's a good deal for a guy like that. I am going to be fascinated by the running backs, and as we get closer to Green Bay, we'll discuss this. But everybody was like with what Henry did and Josh Jacobs and obviously Saquon in free agency. Well, the running back is back. I still only think there's going to be two guys taken in the first round. It's Ashton Genty and it's Amarian Hampton. I think those two guys go in the first, and then we'll see how many go right after that because there is a great. You got the two guys from Ohio State. There's two guys from Michigan. Uh, there's a bunch of talented players that I'll be fascinated to see how many running backs go on day 2 because the number could be large.
Yeah, it seems like the entire second day two of the draft is just going to be running backs and defensive tackles alternating picks every pick.
Yeah, but there's going to be a ton of defensive tackles off the board. I'm telling you, it wouldn't shock me if 7 go. If 7 guys go, and we didn't even get a chance to see like Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant. Those guys Mason
Yeah,
Graham could end up in the top 5. Kenneth Grant's going to go in the middle of the first round.
right.
So,
Just need one of them to fall to pick 34, please. But after that, we're good.
well, one of those guys ain't falling to
No, no,
34.
no,
You
no,
will,
no.
but you will get. Yeah, listen, the Browns are the same way. They need help up there. It sucks when you need so much help and you can only use a couple little picks on them.
Well, at
Stinks.
least you're not trading away your best player.
Well, we might be
Oh shit, my bad.
easy. All right, so that'll do it for us. Coming up later this week, we're going to do something fun. We're going to do our free agency football draft. So that'll be a good time. Pennick will return. We might even have a fourth join us. We're working on that as well. So, Bobby, once again, congratulations. Let's not
Thank
leave
you.
any rings behind when we go travel. Okay? Let's make sure, like, you can use that from here to eternity. Every time you guys leave a hotel when you're on vacation, hey, do you have your ring? You're allowed to use that.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I just the voicemail from the hotel. I just showed her. I was like, yeah,
Oh,
okay.
yeah. Oh,
We
save
were at
that
we were
forever.
at the Kennedy Space Center when I got that voicemail. So
Yeah. Well,
it was
yeah, save that voicemail forever. Do not hit erase on that one, okay?
perfect.
Great. For our awesome producer, Connor, for Bobby Skinner, for an AWOL Justin Pennick, who will return later this week, I am Chris Rose. We will see you next time here on Football Today.